Hello, Julie. Welcome. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, hi, I can hear you very well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Here I am.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I've got, looks like the meeting is starting, so I better let you go. Talk to you later. Love you too. Bye-bye. So I'll do that. Okay, now I can hear.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, all right. We sound like we're good. Thank you, Becky. Can you hear me, Bo?
Yes, sir. I've got you good. Thank you.
All right, looks like it's gonna work.
Welcome, Commissioner Bonwell. We've done a tech check and I believe we're ready to start. I'm showing 6:29. If you can hear me okay, I think we're ready when you are.
Okay, can you hear me?
We've got you good.
All right. I'll call the meeting to order if we're all here. So, and you guys have done the tech check?
Yes, tech check is active. We're good to go.
Okay. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
None have come in formally. Is there, but we do have some discussion items at the end of the agenda. And beyond that, Commissioner Bonwell, we are going to request some assistance on our first public hearing, just as far as making it through the formal actions. So we do have Julie and Ben from Baseline on here. I guess the only other addition would be is an introduction to their company.
Yes, please. That'd be great.
Yeah, do you want me to do that, Becky?
That would be fantastic. And let's go ahead and do that after we move through our consent agenda and approval of the minutes from last meeting.
Okay.
No, Becky, I can't, yeah. I am without any notes. I'm traveling, so I don't have that. Yeah, thanks for moving it up. I don't have a copy in front of me.
No problem.
Okay. So I'd like to approve or have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the 19th of December.
So
Yeah,
moved.
This is Rocco. I move to approve the minutes from December 19th with one change to paragraph 5. Instead of chair, it says Char Matthews, but
Yeah.
that gets changed to chair. I move to approve with that one correction.
And I also, Becky, I have a correction too. Under 1, I'd just like to note who was on Zoom and who wasn't. I think that might be valuable to know. And Lamar was on Zoom. Mike, were you present?
Yes,
And I think the other 4 of us were present in person, I believe.
yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, all in favor or with those changes?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, that moves, the motion moves to accept the December minutes. Thank you. Next, public input. Do we have anyone there from the public that wants to speak?
It doesn't appear that we have anybody in the audience that would like to enter public comment.
All right. Very good. And reports, Becky, I wasn't sure what the reports are. Is it our report, your report?
It could be any, it could be, so we usually, the way that we've set it up at the Board of Trustees level is that we have our appointed or elected officials reports first, and then oftentimes we will go through staff. So this is an opportunity for anybody on the Planning Commission to report on any work that they're doing for the commission or other things that they'd like to bring to the commission's attention. And then as far as staff reports goes, we did send out an update from Ms. Simmons earlier in January. So that's a report here, and we can offer a little bit of catch-up items today as well.
Okay, thank you. Any of the commissioners have any reports?
No.
Okay. Then Becky, would you proceed? Is there a report that you have? Is that what I'm understanding?
Just wanted to give everybody a little bit of an update on, of course, baseline. We did send out a correspondence to the Board of Trustees, the Planning Commission, with baseline. They will go ahead and introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about them. Bo, when they begin, if you wouldn't mind allowing baseline to present if they would like to, or share screen if they would like to, or we can at least maximize their screen so that we can see them a little bit better here in the room. The only other updates that we have is that I'd like to offer is a thank you to Baseline for helping this transition be pretty smooth. They've done a phenomenal job of reaching out to the applicants and for the applications that were in process so far. So thanks to Ben and Julie, and I'll hand it over to them as soon as we're ready, unless anybody else has anything else to report.
Okay, I guess I'll go ahead and start. My name is Ben Thurston. I'm the planning director for Baseline Engineering. I'll just tell you a little bit about Baseline. We're a multidisciplinary firm, so we've got civil engineering, survey, planning, landscape architecture, environmental. Those are the divisions that we have. We have about 77 employees across 4 offices in Colorado. We're headquartered in Golden, and then we have offices in Steamboat Springs, Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs. And Julie and I work out of the Golden headquarters office. And we're happy to be here. This is a big part of the work that we do. We're working currently in 13 communities in various locations in Colorado, doing this same kind of work where we're doing development review and kind of serving as either the full planning department for a small community, or sometimes we're in a position where we're supplementing full-time staff and we're just sort of there to help out on an on-call basis. So we're really happy to be here with you all, and we're learning about Green Mountain Falls as we go. So and with that, I'll let Julie introduce herself.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, I'm Julie Usterl. I'm a principal planner. I've been with Baseline for 8 years. Before that, I was a planner in Janesville, Wisconsin for 12 years. And I, like Ben said, I work for other communities. I also serve the city of Blackhawk, the town of Fraser, and the town of Monument. I've also worked in Eaton, Albert County, and I enjoy the work. And I have to say, I haven't been in Green Mountain Falls yet, but I was on Street View today preparing for this presentation, and it is a really beautiful community. So hopefully I'll get to visit and meet you all in person at some point. Thank you.
Lisa, this is Rocco. I have a question. I guess I'll just go ahead and ask.
Commissioner
So-
Blasey, sorry, I was muted. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was looking at the agreement for professional services that the town signed with Baseline. This is a question, I guess, for Baseline. I was looking at page 3, which talks about the team members. There's 7 job titles with the word planner in it. And it goes from a planning technician, which is $90 an hour, to the planning director, which is almost double that. And I'm just wondering, for development review, which of these rates are we looking at? Because it looks like the rates go from $90 to $179 per hour. So you get a typical plan review. Is your whole team involved, or do you try to keep it at the bottom of the pay scale?
That's a great question. We don't currently employ a planning technician, so that our rate schedule is based on a full complement of planners that we might have on our team. But we don't currently have a planning technician on our team. We do have one associate planner. At this point, she's not involved in Green Mountain Falls on that team. So the majority of the development review would be done by Julie, who's a principal planner. And then we have another planner available for the team who's a senior planner. And so those are the 2 rates that you would see the most often. As the planning director, I'm here, for support. And so I might get involved on a very limited basis on development review. There's been a lot more involvement by me at the front end as we've gotten started, and just trying to make sure that we get settled in and we have our feet under us. But that would drop off as we move on, and so you'd be looking at mostly a principal planner and a senior planner.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions or comments? I guess not. So next, number 7 is the business. portion of our agenda with our major site plan application. I want a
Um,
public hearing. Okay, you want to discuss that?
Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Baseline a little bit, but just wanted to kind of remind everybody of, I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just looking at our order of procedure and our municipal code and yeah, so it was showing a little bit of a different order and I might be confused, but I'll hand it over to Baseline to the Planning Commission to open the public hearing. Apologies.
Okay, so public hearing. Number 6 on our agenda. And Becky, is the public there?
There is public here and I'm gonna, I do have one question for Ben and Julie during this process. This is the opportunity for the public to make comment on the application. Is that correct?
Yeah, so normally you would open the public hearing and you'd give a little bit of instruction about how you're going to conduct it. And that would normally start with a staff presentation. But we could postpone that until the major site plan. We did divide on the agenda. We did divide the public hearing from the major site plan application itself. And so it's really up to the Planning Commission if you'd rather hear the presentation now. And that way, when you do open it up for public comment, they would have something to comment on because they would have actually heard, our presentation first. And then the way you would do it is you would open it up to anybody who is in favor of the application and then follow that with anybody who's opposed to the application. And then you would also want to hear from the applicant.
Ben, this is Commissioner Bonwell. Can I clarify that? So you would make the presentation, then we already discussed whether we're in favor or not before the presenter or the applicant makes their comments.
No, that's a little bit out of order. So I would say, again, if you're going to have us present first, that would be the normal order. Then you would hear from the applicant. Then at that point, you would open it up to the public, to anybody in favor or in opposition. Once you've heard from everybody, you would close the public hearing and have discussion among the commission and an opportunity to ask any questions of either the staff or the applicant.
Can we proceed in that direction? That would be great.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and Julie will, if she can share her screen, she will make a presentation.
I will. Okay. Did that share?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That was easy. Thank you. Let me see if I can get this to advance. There we go. Okay, so this is an application for a major site plan for the Green Mountain Falls Horse Wellness Meadow.
Julie, will you give us just a moment? We're having a hard time getting it to display on the screen here at Town Hall. It looks like everybody in Zoom land is able to see it, but it's
Sure,
not
of
up here.
course. Do you want me to stop sharing and then try again?
Let's try that. And I'm wondering too, are you able to email this over by chance?
Of course. Let me do that quickly. I should have done that beforehand.
If
Apologies.
she shares from here, maybe try sharing one from here.
Are you asking me to share from somewhere?
Yeah,
Mhm.
try that. I didn't see it come in the queue.
Mm-mm. Haha,
Oh,
we got it.
winning.
We're live. Thank you, Julie.
Sure. Okay. So I'll email that to you later, or put it in the Dropbox. Okay, so again, this is a Green Mountain Falls Horse Wellness Meadow major site plan. There we go. So the request is for the approval of a major site plan to develop a horse wellness facility at 10325 West Highway 24. A little background on the project. The applicant is Jesse Stroop. The property owner is Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, LLC. The property address again is 10325 West Highway 24. The property was annexed into Green Mountain Falls in January of 2021 under the Red Devil Mountain Parcel annexation. The existing zoning is O, open space, and the proposed land use is a horse wellness facility, which we have determined qualifies as an animal shelter. The property is located just south of Highway 24 in the north and east corner of town. As you can see on the aerial photo on the right, the proposed horse facility is in the upper corner of the property, and there is the existing Sky Space installation on the southern portion of the property, and that is going to remain on this site even if this development goes through. Here is the street view of the property. You can see those barns kind of in the middle left side. Those are existing and are going to be demolished if this proposal and development occurs. And this shows that it has direct access onto or from Highway 24. So the site plan is going to include a horse barn with an atrium and restrooms. It's approximately 4,500 square feet. The site also includes dry lots for feeding, a round pen for training, and a hay barn. As I mentioned, the access is off of the Highway 24, which is already existing. The site plan includes a loop road, not to be paved, but gravel, and parking is going to be provided 12 standard spaces and 7 trailer spaces. One thing we noted on the site plan is that at least one van accessible space needs to be provided to comply with ADA regulations. The zone district standards for open space are fairly brief. There's no lot area, lot width, or building setback requirements. There is a maximum building height of 25 feet. All of those items are in compliance. The 2 barns that are proposed are both under 23 feet approximately. Development review includes the wet utilities. The proposal is to include private water and sanitary sewer. That's in compliance with the annexation agreement. Dry utilities include an electric service from an existing, I believe it's an overhead power line. We would like to send this out to review to the local provider to make sure that they don't need any easements or have any other requirements for this development. Grading, drainage, and erosion control plans were submitted and reviewed by the town's engineer. Those comments were returned to the applicant recently. And so the applicant will be working on those to address those comments, and that will be included as a condition of this approval. Parking for an animal shelter is a one space for every 400 square feet. So with the size of the building, that comes out to 12 required spaces, and they have 12 plus the 7 trailer parking spaces. So that's 19 provided. So that is adequate. Traffic, there was no traffic study submitted with this application. The annexation agreement does require one, and we have included that as a condition of approval for this major site plan. And yeah, I did discuss this with the applicant. He may address this in his presentation and have some discussion on that with you guys. We're not familiar with the annexation agreement and its history, so that's something you may discuss if you choose. Access, as we mentioned, is on Highway 24. Since this is a new development, even though there is existing access, we would like for this to be sent out to the Colorado Department of Transportation for review. This is in the best interest of the town. If CDOT determines that this development would require any kind of improvements to that access point on Highway 24, you would want to know that before the development gets underway. That way a possible development agreement could be drawn up between the town and the applicant, and the determination of how that gets built and paid for could be determined before development occurs, and then improvements are discovered being needed after the fact. Land use review includes the actual land use itself, which is an animal shelter. Currently, animal shelter is not a permitted or conditional use within open space zone district, but Austin Flanagan, the town's attorney, has prepared a draft ordinance that will come before the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees at a later date once that is properly noticed. And that will be a proposal to add animal shelters to the open space district as a conditional use. And once that happens, and actually before, this is all going a little bit backwards, a conditional use permit will also be required. And so both the addition of the use to the code and the approval of the conditional use permit are conditions of this master site plan approval as well. Compliance with the comprehensive plan was reviewed and was determined to be consistent with goal 3.4.1, policy A, including that the development enhances a sense of communities compatible with the surrounding land uses and the natural environment and the community's expectations. And policy C, that the town would like to encourage development along Highway 24 that is appropriately scaled and is in keeping with the uses desired by Green Mountain Falls residents. Public notice for this meeting and this review of the major site plan was provided in accordance with section 1252H. That's outlined in your staff report. I didn't copy the dates here. Finally, our findings, these are all exactly copied from your staff report. I'm not going to read through them word for word, but in general, the approval criteria we feel has been met for this development with the conditions that we are recommending in our recommendation. So with that, our recommendation is to approve with conditions a major site plan for the development of a horse wellness facility at 10325 West Highway 24 with these conditions outlined in your staff report, which includes adding the use to the code, the acquisition of a conditional use permit, review by the utility provider, particularly the electric provider, review by CDOT, the adequate ADA parking, traffic study for review by the town. And then that the applicant shall address all referral comments to the satisfaction of each referral agency, including but not limited to CDOT, the utility companies, engineering, planning, and town staff. That concludes my presentation. Let me know if you want me to stop sharing or if you'd like me to keep it up for any questions, or if the applicant is there and maybe wants to speak next.
Julie, this is Commissioner Bonmo. Could you leave that previous slide up with the conditions? That would be great.
Yep.
That's wonderful. And then the applicant, yeah, sure, they can speak.
Jesse Stroop, 10770 Florence Avenue. I'm not going to take us through the whole application because Julie just did a great job doing that. We're applying to put in a horse barn with an atrium and a restroom to be used as educational and volunteer space. We'll be putting in a shower for the horses. We're doing corrals, dry lots, round pen, and a hay barn. Building in anticipation of putting in a rescue facility that will house 8 to 10 horses. They don't drive, they won't be trailering to work every day, but because of the size of the barn, we'll be putting in 12 parking spaces. We won't use them. Based on the scope of the proposal, approval of the major site plan is required in order to develop the proposed horse wellness facility. Great, I ask that we do that tonight. A few corrections. The original application date was December the 7th, so that'll need to be corrected in the staff report. Water is to be provided by a cistern rather than a well. And I am in discussions with Colorado Springs Utilities about bringing water to the site. I have been in touch with the utility companies. Core Electric out of Woodland Park has the utility easement on that parcel. So they're supposed to be providing electric. Although we've been purchasing electric from Colorado Springs Utilities for the last many years. So there's some confusion there that we're working through. But I do have good signals coming from CSU that they're going to be able to provide water and possibly electric. There's mention of a traffic study that is required. I want some specific information about what that is. That requirement is sort of a layover from the annexation before we put in SkySpace. SkySpace has been open for just over 2 years. We've had 10,000 visitors from 8 countries. We've had no complaints about traffic from town staff or anyone else, frankly. And we did that while sharing half of our parking lot with town to work on the Stilling Basin. So in my mind, since you didn't tell me exactly what to give you in a traffic study, I'm going to start with that and let you ask me additional questions. There's a comment that I've turned in a substantially complete application. I did that on December 7th. So if there's things missing, there's been some time to talk about that. And the summary of conditions of approval, while I understand we need to go through this process, that smooth transition can sometimes be smooth until you hit something big. So working with CDOT is new. The rest of the things we've sort of been working through, but so some of these are new and may take some time to get through. Of course, I'll do it. I understand why it needs to be done. If there's frustration in my voice, it just comes from the last minute notification that those things need to be done. Happy to answer any questions about the rescue, about the facility, or anything else.
Jesse, this is Commissioner Bonwell. Thank you for coming to present your application. Do you know about when CSU will get back to you about the water and the electric? Like a timeline, or I'm sure you're frustrated with waiting for that.
So, previous board member, Chris Quinn is helping with that. He's an engineer for CSU. And, we've had significant breakthroughs every day. First, finding that the easement wasn't theirs, and so on. So we do have someone in their office that's working hard to get this accomplished. In the meantime, we are able to provide water to the facility through an existing cistern.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
When you talk about a cistern, you said you're gonna bring water in to put it in the cistern. Will rainwater fill it up too? Or how does that work? I don't know how that works.
It's, I believe it's a 750-gallon cistern. So there's a pump truck that comes out of Woodland Park that'll
Oh.
just do a weekly drive-by and fill it up. We got that, we dug it up, we cleaned it up, cleaned it out, and got it all ready and sitting there waiting to use in case we
I
need it.
see, I see. Now, do you eventually hope to have a water line like we do in town?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that your purpose?
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
And so Chris is working on that with you?
That's
also?
correct.
And the electric also with CSU instead of Woodland Park?
So typically, CSU is only responsible for water if they are providing electric.
Oh,
They've signaled that they may break that that rule for us or that understanding for us, but they're in hopes to work with Core Electric to get that easement changed that would allow us to have CSU electric.
So Commissioner Bonwell, we still have the public hearing in progress, so I think we should hold off on planning commission questions and open it up to the floor for the public hearing questions.
oh,
All right, Commissioner Blasi, we can begin the public hearing.
Do we have anybody in the audience or on Zoom? Let's start with audience first. Anybody here that would like to ask any questions? Or comments? Hearing none in the room, in the online, do we have anybody? We do have a question on Zoom.
It's not really related. I have someone asking how many people are in the audience, and I'm going to answer that directly.
No public comment or questions here from the audience or on Zoom. So now we are able to close the public hearing, and unless the commissioners have any additional questions for the applicant. And also, Julie, are you able to help answer any questions that the commissioners might have during their deliberation?
Of course.
Thank you.
I have another question. Where in the condition it said a traffic study and then CDOT would be involved, are they concerned about the traffic onto Highway 24 rather than, the access? That's the only reason it would involve Department of Transportation from the state that I know of.
Yeah, I can answer that. So that the application is going to require almost certainly an access permit, even though there's an existing access point. It will be used differently than it has been historically, and under those circumstances, the Department of Transportation requires an access permit. So that's a process, and truthfully, it usually requires some level of traffic study as part of it, and that will likely define the scope that Jesse was asking about what kind of scope will be required for the traffic study itself. Traffic studies come in a lot of different scopes, and they can kind of go from just a pretty basic traffic letter to a full-blown study. I would think that, given the limited nature of the use of this access, and this land use, I would hope that we're seeing something more basic, but ultimately we'll have to find that out through the access permit process with CDOT.
So does that take very long? If would Jesse?
It can take a while.
Oh, this is a public hearing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it can take some time, and so I think, and I think what Jesse's suggesting is he's hoping to get approval sort of subject to then going through that. And from our standpoint, from Baseline's recommendation, we would support that, because we don't see the outcome of this being something that would prohibit this development, or the worst case scenario. I think you'd potentially have to look for alternative access, and it seems like that might be possible for this site.
Commissioner Bonwell, this is Mayor Dixon. I'd like to address the commission.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, there's a handful of things in the report that I believe are inappropriate. And as far as the conditions 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are, in my opinion, not conditions for approval of a site plan. They are beyond the scope of our land use code. The annexation agreement that was originally written had the things that they've identified as deliverables as part of the annexation on June 1st, 2021. The only thing we should be considering on this is what's in our land use code. The interaction with Highway 24 and the utilities, again, is beyond our land use code. We do not have anything in there about that. Those should not be conditions. They can be recommendations, but they, in my opinion, they cannot be conditions for approval.
Thank you, Mayor Dixon.
So we're still in the public hearing right now, Commissioner Bonwell, and
No, we're not. We've gone on. I believe it was closed.
okay, thank you.
You need to reopen it?
No,
don't think so.
there was no input.
Okay, that's correct. Yes.
So while we're on the issue of the conditions, I wholeheartedly agree with the utilities and the CDOT. If we have never asked a potential developer about hooking up utilities, I think the stuff about cisterns and electric is outside of our scope. CDOT, access permit. This is not a different use than historically, Mr. Thurston. This has been a horse property since I've lived here for the past 17 years. So it's the same. And so if CDOT requires it, it's not a town condition. And so we can't levy that condition. I agree with the mayor. The ADA part, I'm not sure, that's condition 5. And the traffic study, the requirement for that expired June 1st, 2021. So that condition should be nothing to do with the current development. That condition expired almost 3 years ago. And also condition number 7. And so I do appreciate the thoroughness from Baseline, but we need to scope this for what's appropriate for our town and what's outlined in our code. And so I agree with the mayor that condition 3, 4, 6, and 7 need to go away, because those are onerous. And, the mayor himself went through building his house several years ago there was no discussion. I was on the planning commission. There was no discussion about utilities. Occasionally septic systems come up just to make sure there's enough room on a parcel. But, you know, while I do appreciate the thoroughness from Baseline, this exceeds the scope of our authority.
And Commissioner Blasey, you may agree with condition 5, but right now there's no ADA parking that I'm aware of that's a requirement in our code.
Commissioner Esch, do you have any comments?
Well, I just kind of get confused. I was just thinking, I certainly agree, you know, I think everybody wants to have this happen. And I just wonder if we go ahead and approve it, which with no conditions, will Mr. Stroop still have to go ahead and do all those other things later? Which is fine, you know, I mean, I don't know if you're faced with that or not, but maybe they're just kind of flags rather than the conditions that we cannot impose, really, shouldn't.
Commissioner Fry, do you have any comments?
No, I have no comments. I'm agreeing with what's been said.
All right, and I agree also. Can we ask Baseline to speak to that perhaps, since we're all in agreement that this may be not in the scope of our process?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I mean, I want you to understand that we're making a recommendation based on best practices and our understanding of requirements. Some requirements that are associated with land development are not necessarily listed in your code. And but I want you to understand also that these are just our recommendations. So when the mayor mentioned maybe these should be recommendations, that's exactly what they are. There are recommendations for what we're proposing that you adopt as conditions. It's entirely up to you what you ultimately adopt as conditions. This is just what we are recommending based on best practices and what we think the development of the property is subject to, regardless of whether it's specifically listed in your code.
Thank you. Town Manager Becky?
Yes, so the next step in this process is that at the you have the opportunity at this point in time to evaluate and approve or disapprove of this application with or without conditions.
Okay, so we need to make a motion to approve, all right.
Without conditions. I'll
All
just
right,
approve
one of
it.
the commissioners want to do that? Commissioner Ball?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so Commissioner Bonwell, I'll make a motion at this point unless there's any more discussion. We can discuss after, before we vote as well. And just for full disclosure, I am an officer and director of a nonprofit that does receive charitable contributions from Mr. Chris Cassee through a different charity, a different philanthropy. But I receive no compensation. It's an all volunteer board. So I need to make that disclosure, but I do plan to vote on this. And so with that being said, I move to approve the major site plan with conditions 1 and 2. And they're up in front of us right now. So we need to establish the animal shelter for the open space district. And the applicant needs the conditional use permit once that is in our code. And so I move to approve the major site plans with conditions 1 and 2.
I'll second it. This is Ann Esch.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so it passes unanimously. Thank you, Baseline. It was a great presentation and
Good.
just to think about and understand. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Could I ask a question? Is Lisa there?
Sure, yeah, I'm still here.
I was just wondering, you know, all the conditions and things that um, should, is there any way the town can help out with those things? I don't know how that works. If this horse facility is wanted, you know, in our town, is that all up to the applicant to work on all those things by himself?
As you have approved this just now, the two conditions that are on there that are that I have annotated are established in our land use code as a conditional use for the open space. That's the animal shelter, and approval of a conditional use permit for an animal shelter on the subject property. Both of those items are ready
We're
to
ready to go.
yeah, move
So
forward.
the
So
trustees could move along on those next week.
yeah, and that's a lot of the reason for your meeting next Tuesday at 6:30 is that's a required process for the conditional use
That's
piece.
another step.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Anne.
okay, thank you.
So next item on your agenda, are you ready to move along, Lisa?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so this is the agenda process, and we wanted to take a few minutes and kind of go over, you all have had an outstanding list of old business items and kind of wanted to get some consensus. As the code reads, your chair has final approval of your agenda. Working with a planner or town staff, we received those requests for agenda items. Now that you've had a little bit of change in leadership, just wanted to make sure that these items still are indeed relevant and there's things that you want to continue to work on. And if not, I think that there's a couple of reasons to evaluate them. There's been some question as to, you know, first off, are they items that are being supported by an annual work plan? That's coming from our code. It's not something that I've seen the Planning Commission do yet, but I'm happy to help you in any way that I can put together an annual work plan. The other piece of it ends up being, is it within your authority to work on those items? So, Bo, are you able to easily pull up a list of those items, or I'm sure that somebody here has them and we can go through them one by one?
This is Commissioner Bonwell. I have a list that I've written out. I can just verbally review those.
Okay, shall we take a look at each of them one by one and have a little discussion on them? And that'll give us some direction as staff as to what to keep on your agenda.
Sure. So the first one on the list was applicants for Planning Commission vacancy. And it's my understanding that the Planning Commission is not responsible for replacing members when they're, or to recruit members to the Planning Commission. That the town does that. Is that correct, Becky? Okay,
Yeah, we currently have the vacancy posted on the website. Have not received any applications on that yet.
okay. I think it's okay if we wish to, you know, speak to people and encourage them to volunteer in our town, but it's not our responsibility alone to find a replacement. Is that correct?
That's correct. And, you know, We as staff, when we interface with people here in the public, we do, when we think that we see somebody that's a good fit. Of course, if you guys know somebody who would be a good fit, certainly have them reach out to us, and that is, instructions on how to do so are also up on the website. We're happy to send those out if you'd like.
So Commissioner Bonwell, Commissioner Blasey, while we don't have to solicit applicants, it's typically been done through word of mouth in addition to what the town does formally. But we do have, part of the process is we will review the applicants and make recommendations to the Board of Trustees. If we receive more than one applicant, we make recommendations. So that's our role in the process. I recommend that we keep that as a placeholder and execute that when we receive an application.
Commissioner Esch, I have a question. That's just sort of a tradition, isn't it? I mean, I don't remember that it was always first, the planning commission always reviewed and recommended. Has that always been the truth? So you want us to continue to do that or skip that?
That's per our code, that the planning commission would recommend,
So we would still do that?
mhm.
Oh,
And then-
I was misunderstanding then. I thought they were gonna just skip it.
No,
Skip
and
the planning
so-
commission, no.
Yeah, and we can either, add that certainly if we got an application, we would add that to the agenda. We'd let you all know.
Is that public information? Is it it is within the agenda?
Yes.
With all the applications,
Mhm.
and so that will continue.
Mhm.
And then we recommend and the trustees choose.
Yeah,
Or,
the trustees make that appointment.
Uh-huh.
So the question on the table now is to leave it on the agenda as a standing business item, or shall it be removed and put back up on there when it becomes?
When it's necessary.
Mhm.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think it should be placed only on the agenda when it's necessary. When we have an applicant and need to discuss. Does that make sense?
One thing I might mention, we always would like to have alternates. Maybe we should keep it on there. Just to keep people apprised that they can still participate if they're interested.
Commissioner Esch, I think that we don't need to discuss it every month when we don't have an application, though.
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's we want to trim our agenda, keep it efficient. I think that's the point. Is that right, Becky? I think,
Yes.
yes, okay. So I think do we all agree on that? Commissioner Fry too? Shake your head.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, great. Thank you for that comment, Rocco. That's great. All right, staging policy follow-up is what I had next. Oh, no, excuse me, I have planning commission meeting schedule, excuse me. And it is my understanding that the meetings are requested by the town manager. It is helpful to have a schedule, though, that's recurrent, I would think, so that we can all plan ahead and that kind of thing. And I think we've had it on the second Tuesday. And through the last year, it was 2 times a month because we were working on the land use code. But I think traditionally it was monthly. So I don't think that needs to be on the agenda necessarily. Everybody agree with that or have any comments about that? I think we're going to leave it for the second Tuesday.
So Commissioner Bonwell, I agree. But most of the applications come in starting in May and go through the summer. And so we may want to keep it the second and fourth Tuesday. And that may also change if we decide that we want to do a revision or update to the comprehensive plan, because that'll be like the land use code. Where we will need to meet twice a month. And so that's a follow-on discussion, but I would say as a minimum, the second Tuesday.
This is the town clerk. If I may chime in, the municipal code section 2-207 rules of procedure. Which was just recommended is exactly what's in there. And it reads, all boards, committees, and commissions shall meet regularly at least once a month, except when a quorum is not available or there's no business to address. And so there's nothing preventing us from adding meetings as needed, but I think having a scheduled monthly meeting would be in keeping with the code.
And one way we could address that on the agenda is to like leave it, next meeting will be, I think that's helpful information on our agenda to say, you know, at the closing. So I think we could leave it on the agenda so we all know when to plan for the next meeting.
The other thing I'd like to request of you all is when we look through our calendar of the first Tuesday of each month, that oftentimes falls the day after a holiday. With the Board of Trustees, that's oftentimes a little bit challenging to be able to get their meetings in on a timely basis. And you guys have been gracious in allowing us to swap meetings from time to time, although I don't anticipate that being a regularly occurring thing. I just wanted to put that out there. We haven't had a chance to talk with the Board of Trustees yet, and it made sense to us to not do so until after the election when new members are sworn in, to ensure that their schedule is able to swap or look at their days that they're available. So this is something that, yes, I agree for now that it's good to have that regularly scheduled meeting at the beginning of each month. But I would like to ask that we revisit and have this conversation again post-election.
And it's not the first, it's the second Tuesday, correct?
Yes, but with, I think
But
it's,
I understand what you're saying, that,
okay.
yeah, that the board often meets the first, and yeah, okay. All
This
right,
is Mike, I have a question.
Yep.
If we have nothing to talk about, what's the process for deciding not to have a meeting on the second Tuesday?
Yeah, that's a great question, Micah. This comes up from time to time with the Board of Trustees also, where we just find that there's not enough business items to have that second meeting in the month, or that the information just isn't there at the time isn't lining up with when we have all the material and need to make the decision. So as far as canceling a meeting, we are able to do so if there is no business items. I do think that having that first meeting of the month, at least on the schedule, so that we can have some regularity for the planner and the applications that we'll have coming in the next couple of months, we'll be able to work through those. But the process for canceling the meeting is quite simple. We post that it's canceled on the website.
Okay, thank you.
all right. The next bullet point was staging policy follow-up. And we have presented our recommendations to the board, and I believe that's in process. Is that right? Town manager, can you respond to or update us on that?
Yeah,
I don't-
absolutely. So
Yeah.
that staging policy was provided to the Board of Trustees, and they made a determination to try to not overburden any one area of town all the time, but also acknowledging that if the town does have a large project and we need to utilize that space to make it occur for the public benefit, that they wanted to be able to have that availability. So you all did your job as planning commission members by and serving as in an advisory capacity by providing that recommendation to the Board of Trustees.
Right. Okay.
So Commissioner Bonwell, so back
Yes.
on December 19th, when we met, the update was staff is currently working with legal. So that was almost 3 months ago. So where is the policy at this point?
So we're discussing, Commissioner Blasey, we're discussing whether or not to have that on the agenda. Rather than to go, in the interest of time, to go through town manager Frank just mentioned that the board has talked about it and they've made a decision, and she just reiterated that, so. I
I'm
don't
not
think.
clear, I'm not clear on the status, and in the interest of time, I requested a planning commission meeting on February 27th, which the town manager canceled. So I have all the time that it takes tonight to get my questions answered.
Excuse me, we're gonna go back to the topic, which is the staging policy follow-up that needs to be on the agenda or not. I do not think it needs to be on the agenda. Can I hear thoughts from other commissioners? We need to
Uh,
discuss that every month.
Commissioner Esch, I agree that it doesn't need to be on the agenda. It's my understanding that it's in the hands of the trustees now. And I have a note to myself that they're considering maybe using a conditional permit or something like that when they choose a site. But I don't know that you've come up with a official thing yet. So I think they're the ones that have to make that decision, not us.
Commissioner Fry?
I'm not sure what the staging policy is.
We had made a recommendation and discussed with the most appropriate area to the staging. Remember, we went and looked at different sites. You created a plan
Oh,
for that.
yes.
That's what
Okay,
we're
now
talking
I know
about.
what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Okay.
And so what our question in hand is whether or not we need to be discussing that as an agenda bullet item every meeting.
I wouldn't think so unless we have an application. I'm not sure whether it's our responsibility or the Board of Trustees to make that decision. Do we know which it is?
It's the Board of Trustees, I believe.
Okay, well then I don't know that we need to discuss it if it's their responsibility,
Okay.
unless I'm missing the point here.
So my point was, Commissioner Fry, when we met December 19th, staff was working with legal. So that was 3 months ago. We were tasked by the Board of Trustees to come up with the policy. You put in a lot of effort on that, and I just want to know what the status is.
Okay. I understand.
Is that I'm going to talk to the town manager here. This is awkward on Zoom. Is that appropriate for our discussion and review this evening? I don't think that's,
Without amending your agenda to add it on there, you're talking about discussing it tonight.
yes,
You'd need to amend your agenda.
okay. So is that something that we need to, does anyone else other than, it sounds like Commissioner Blasey would like to discuss that further. Do we need to add that to the agenda for our next meeting? Or is that what you're proposing? It sounds like, Commissioner Blasey, it sounds like Commissioner Esch, Fry, and myself don't feel like we need to discuss this, that it's in the hands of the board.
I'm asking for an update. And so whether it happens tonight or next week, let's get it on an agenda for what the status is of the policy that we were tasked to produce.
So you're wanting to have it on the agenda. The other three commissioners do not want it on the agenda. Is there another way that that information could be provided to update Commissioner Blasey?
I'd be happy to provide a staff report, and add that to your agenda at the next meeting and give an update as best as I can at that time.
Other commissioners, do you feel like that's necessary?
Well, I think that's fine if Bo can give us a status report next time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, I have no objection to that. I
Okay.
don't think we need to keep, other than that, that's fine.
Okay, well, we'll readdress that, whether or not that needs to be a monthly update. That sounds like we still haven't decided, but we will do it next month.
Yes.
Okay.
We meet next week.
You do have a very short meeting next week, beginning at 6 PM with the Board of Trustees meeting being followed by 7 PM. So or at 6:30, your meeting is next week.
Okay, the next topic was status of the PC request for the addresses of applicants.
That's been decided.
I think that's been discussed. That we don't require addresses of applicants that are being worked on by our planning commission staff. So that's another status question. Do we need to discuss that every month?
So I think Commissioner Bonwell, in our minutes that we approved earlier today, it said new policies will be rolled out January 30th.
Mhm.
I didn't see any policies.
They were in the trustees, at the trustees meeting. Didn't we have a report on
But that was the response when we talked about the PC requests for applicants' addresses.
Right, can you address that, town manager?
Yeah, so I think that that's probably incorrectly worded in your minutes. It should say procedures, not policies. That ended up being a staff determination to not include applicants' addresses in a status update of projects. Doing so does create an opportunity for prejudgment of applications, which can impact their ability to be approved. Outside of that, I have discussed this with Baseline and your need for information or your desire for information of projects that are coming up. And we did talk about being able to put together a public-facing list of applications that are in progress that do not contain information that would cause them to be subject to prejudgment.
So Commissioner Bonwell, when we discussed this with the land use attorney, he said there was nothing prohibiting addresses on the staff updates to us. And we had a lot of discussion about that. And so it sounds like staff has made the determination not to include the addresses. Is that correct, Town Manager?
That's correct. There is nothing that would prohibit us from doing so, but by doing so, there would be an opportunity for prejudgment. So made the call.
If I might say, I do know that I read something at one of these meetings that after the application was approved, then it's public information. But it's not while they're applying that we're
Right.
we can't know then.
Right.
But once you've said yes, then that's okay. All the neighbors
Mhm.
know that you're building a deck or something. Is that correct?
That's correct. So as soon as it's made public information, as soon as it's made part of the packet and that packet is
Right.
posted.
Mhm.
This is Mike. I have a question, Becky. I don't understand why, if it's our responsibility to approve permits, why we wouldn't have the opportunity to go out and look at the site and take a look at what's being requested. I just don't understand what the problem would be with that.
I think that part of the issue could be that if an applicant were to see you out there and taking a look at it, that they would have the opportunity to give you information that would put you in this position of prejudgment. So if this is a discussion that you guys would like to have maybe with Baseline, or if you know they can put together something, but it's the same information really that you've already received from Andy Hill at the state when she came up and did the presentation. We talked about it at the SRSA training. And although Austin did say, yeah, there's nothing illegal statutorily preventing you from having this information, it's just a matter of what value does it add? And, you know, is it something?
I think it would add a lot of value if I could go out and see what was being proposed and not just look at a piece of paper or hear somebody present. But if somebody's got a deck permit or a fence permit or something they're requesting and I could go take a look at it, I think I'd do a lot better job of making a decision on that. Than I don't know why you're so worried about being what'd you say,
Mhm.
prejudged or
Judgment.
citing ahead of time. I
You're
don't think I'm going to be influenced.
Adding bias, I think is what she means.
Yeah, I just don't understand that at all. It seems if we're to do our job, that's just part of the information we ought to have to do our job.
There was a part of the discussion with Austin from the legal team where he sort of addressed this. And from, from a prejudgment standpoint, it's best to have the entire case made before the commission at a public meeting. And if there were to be an appeal that came up, that same set of evidence would have to be what the appellate body looked at. And that process would be complicated if there was, previous various exposure by, commissioners getting out and looking at it elsewhere. So,
So
I'm
I wa-
afraid I don't understand that. It looks like
So,
if it's our job to approve it, we ought to be able to go look at it. That just
So,
makes common sense.
Commissioner Fry, I don't disagree, but it sounds like Commissioner Bonwell, we would like to continue this discussion for next month's agenda item with the same request back to staff that we would like the addresses included again.
That's a good idea. Just keep it talking about it.
Okay, so we're going to keep that on the agenda. It sounds like a majority are in favor of that to discuss. All right. Land use code map update. It's not done, but it's supposed to be during the first quarter. Town manager. I don't think we need that on our agenda every meeting.
We can certainly provide you an update with that when it's got something to update on it.
Okay. And then guardrail options. I think we've also, it's like one of the other topics above with staging, we made our recommendations and it's in the hand of the board and being processed by the board. Is that correct, town manager?
Yeah, that's correct. Thanks for the recommendation and the work that was put in on that. It was presented to the board. I don't have the exact meeting date in front of me. However, it was determined that that project is we're going to need to pursue some funding.
Okay. And then comprehensive plan update. Could you expound on that a little bit more too?
Absolutely. So the comprehensive plan usually is a plan, and there's members of the public here, so I wanted to take this opportunity to explain it a little bit. It is probably one of the most important and critical functions of the Planning Commission. Your current comprehensive plan was done in 2018, I think approved in 2019. It's great to update a comprehensive plan every 5 to 10 years. 10 years being a very long time because a lot occurs in 10 years. Not only things getting done, but also new things that come up that need to occur. So that is a really great tool. And if that is something that you all would like to continue to work on in 2024, 2025, I do believe that there would be some resources available to help to provide an update to that comp plan.
Resources, can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, there's some grant funding available. We would have to come up with a town match, but in talking to the consultant who prepared your comp plan update, it's definitely not as large of a cost to have to do it. The last update or the last plan that they did, I think that they took a non-digital file and had to digitize it essentially before making that comp plan update because those files already exist in a digital capacity. And because it's basically a semi-decade update, it's a much easier process, but we would have to either budget for or come up with some additional funding to match that grant. I anticipated it'll probably be 30 to 40, maybe 50% of the cost of the original comprehensive plan update.
So Commissioner Bonwell, I had a different vision, but I recommend keeping it on the agenda for further discussion. I think we could do it in-house. The last comprehensive plan cost $1,000 a page. It was 100 pages and cost $100,000. When I recommended we update at the 5-year interval, I think it's something we can largely do in-house without any consultants and track where we've got progress and where we need to go, but also have public input and make it update. But I would recommend we keep it on the agenda and we can talk through details at our next big meeting.
Commissioner Esch speaking. I tend to agree with Rocco also on that. And then I have kind of a technical question. In the, some statutes, for state and so forth, they call it a master plan. And we call it a comprehensive plan. Are they the same thing?
They're essentially the same thing.
Because in the state law, it says you have to have a master plan, but this is what that is, so. And I know that you've explained that having that plan helps us get grants because granting agency want to know what we've got plans.
Definitely. So the value in doing so is, it was adopted by the Board of Trustees. And I think one of the large components of that is that it's demonstrated that that stakeholder engagement has occurred and that the community is in supportive of the items that will impact their community.
Well, I think that's a good idea, what you said, to keep it on our agenda and as we work through it. Thank you.
Oh, this is Mike. I would agree with the comments that have been made. I don't think we need to spend a pile of money. I mean, I've had experience facilitating planning sessions with Farm Credit System for 20 or 30 years, and I can't see that we need a consultant to come in and pay them a lot of money. I think this planning commission can probably update the plan, review it, see what's been accomplished, what's yet to be accomplished, and then if we need to, collect some citizen input on where we want to go in the next 10 years. But I can't see spending a huge amount of money on something like this.
I'd like to suggest that you all take a look at a scope of work for a comp plan update that another community utilized and take a look and see make sure that you feel confident that it's something that you'll be able to do. And if so, maybe identify areas that you might like to have help with, and maybe we can find a way to
Compromise.
mhm.
Yeah.
Keep
I
discussing.
would agree we ought to have it on the agenda next time and take a closer look at the plan and to see what needs to be updated and what kind of a job it looks like we've got ahead of us.
Sounds good. All right, that's all I had on my list. Okay, so correspondence is number 8. I don't think we have anything else under old business. Sorry, that's what we were discussing.
We've received no correspondence.
Okay. And 9 discussion items. I feel like we discussed.
I think so.
We have.
All right. So then at this time, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.